Hi, class. I just wanted to check in with you. We're almost at the end of week 2 in English 100, and I wanted to kind of talk about the upcoming essay that will be due um, in a couple weeks. So, you come into the course, I just want to kind of go to our tentative course schedule just to kind of remind you, make sure you're keeping up with the pace. So, we're in week 2 and we're finishing up the lectures and applying them in your reflections and exercises. Sometimes there'll be quizzes. This week there isn't. And then we're going to be moving into week 3 where you're going to be posting your first draft of essay 1 by Wednesday, by midweek at the end of Wednesday. So you want to start thinking about that now, what you're going to be writing and things like that. And then you're going to provide peer feedback by the end of the week to people, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then into week 4, about midweek, you'll receive feedback from me personally on each of your first drafts, and then you'll have your final draft due at the end of that week. So that's our schedule right now. Going back to our course, if you scroll down to Essay 1 module, which is where we're working on, and we're out of week 2 almost, you get down to week 3, you'll see that there are 2 assignments for you to do, and I'll get into exactly what each of those are. And then you'll also see that week 4 stuff is up for you as well, because I want you to be able to plan and see ahead and everything like that. Also, before we get started on what is going to be required of you next week, I just want to go to the writing assignment so that we're all clear on the expectations for that. And that'll be due on February 9th. So if you click on the writing assignment for the Essay 1 module, you'll come to the page where you can see what is due. So it's worth 5% of your overall grade in the class, and it's 25 points. And your goal, if you read the directions right down here, is to make a mini argument about some aspect of the discussion that occurred in Essay 1 Module's Quorum Forum back in week 1. And this is the hardest part for students because they want to write about everything. And I want you to pick a very specific aspect that really stood out to you. And this is where you can put your mark on it and bring in your own personal experience and whatever your interests are. And I want you to be concise. That is kind of the goal of doing these one-page mini arguments, is how do you develop some small aspect of something? Okay? You need to construct a concise argument that is thesis-centered and supported with reasons, explanations, and examples. That is it. And as we go along in this course, I'll start adding more lessons to help you tailor and make it better. This is our starting point. So I kind of leave it open. I'm not going to have a lot of specific things and instructions and guidelines and things like that. As well as my grading starts out pretty lenient, helping you out to learn and stuff. And it grows harder as we go along because you'll be doing a lot of these little one-page arguments, and I'll be expecting more from you as the semester progresses. Your format, just so you know, should be typed in a Microsoft Word document, .doc or .docx file, or even .pdf, although with .pdf, it's difficult for me to make comments on it. If you have .pages or Google Docs or anything like that, it's very difficult for me to open it and comment on it. So please use a Microsoft Word document. This is the part that I think students have a hard time with because they're used to MLA format, double space, 12-point font, 1-inch margins. But because of the nature of the assignment is to be concise to one page, but everybody talks a little bit different, I allow you to adjust the margins, to type single space, use smaller fonts if you want, as long as you don't exceed one page. okay? And it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get right to what you're trying to talk about and to develop it and stay on task and keep it on point. So that's essentially what you'll be doing for this one-page argument. Again, what you decide to write about is whatever we discussed in Quorum Forum Week 1. Some aspect of it, not the entire discussion across the 3 different discussion forums. So you have to narrow it down. Now, if we get back out, go back home to where now that we understand what you need to do for your writing assignment, let's go to week 3. So in week 3, the first thing that I want you to do, and this is really important because I have given you a one-page essay student example down here in week 4. And I do this because I think that we can learn a lot by looking at other people's writing. This student example is not an A paper, it's probably more like a B. And I did that because I want us to kind of talk about what could be improved and how could the student write even better. And it opens up a whole discussion and dialogue. So that's the first thing I want you to do. So this weekend, if you have some extra time, you've done with week 2, start in on this discussion. So I'll click it and open it and just kind of talk about what I want you to do here. So you're going to be posting 3 comments to this discussion by Wednesday, preferably earlier because you're also working on your essay at the same time and getting that posted by Wednesday. And you want to make sure you add something new to the conversation and that all your comments are at least 5 sentences or longer in order to receive credit, just like in the Quorum Forum. So here are the directions. After you review the one-page student example, and it's right there, you can click on it and read it again there. It's also, as you saw earlier in this, in week 4. And then I want you to critique the writing. Just look at it and pay careful attention to the following. And I have a whole bunch of questions down here to kind of look at. But my suggestion is that you select 1 question for each of your 3 posts, answering only 3 questions ultimately below. And that way, everyone in the class has a chance to analyze some aspect of the example student essay. So some of the things to look at. What is the central argument? What is this person arguing about? Sometimes students will start debating whether or not the writer is arguing about this, or maybe the writer is arguing about that. That's fine. That's part of the discussion. That goes into, well, then how clear is this argument? How strong is it? Why or not? What could be done to improve the argument? So those are all things that we can look at. Also, what reasons does the writer use to support their argument? And this is called logos. There's a part of argumentation, which is the logic, the reasoning, the supportive evidence. So you look at, are the reasons convincing? How could they strengthen their reasoning? Where could the writer maybe expand on their ideas? Were there questions that you had? So were you looking at their writing and going, well, okay, yeah, but what about blah, blah, blah? Write that in your post, okay? Also, we move on. What examples, personal experience, anecdotal evidence, and narrative does the writer use to relate their ideas to the audience? And this is called pathos, when you emotionally connect to your audience, not just to their brain logically, but you also kind of get the feels going on. So you want to look at those things and does this feel like a dry argument? Could it be a little bit more exciting to read? Were you bored reading it? All those things that you think about, what keeps your attention. And so you can look at their personal examples and experience and all that and ask if it emotionally connects to the argument well to the reader, and why or why not. What could they do to connect more emotionally? Okay. And then finally, looking at the conclusion, how do you feel after you've read the whole paper? Are you ultimately convinced? Why or why not? What could the writer have done differently to make the conclusions more impactful? So as you're doing this discussion, I'm going to be in there and I'm going to kind of lead the discussion to what I'm looking for and all that kind of stuff. What's really great is this is like a practice peer review for you before you actually do the real peer review. And so when you're making comments, I'll say, okay, but I'd really like you to look at this instead, or and I'll guide you so that you kind of understand what is expected of you in the peer review, which is worth a lot more points. So kind of consider this practice peer review slash finding out what the instructor is looking for from me. Well, after we get out of that discussion, then we have the actual peer review. And move down here. And as you can see, it has multiple due dates and it's worth 25 points. So if you select that, as soon as you get in here, at the very top, you'll see this blue kind of area, and it'll say, since this is a group discussion, each group has its own conversation for this topic. Here are the ones you have access to. Now, in my screencast here, you'll see I have access to all the groups because I'm the instructor. But for you, you will only have one of these present, and it'll be the one that you are in. Each group has four students in it, except for one. One group only has three. And so you'll have plenty of people to work with, and it keeps it kind of easier to find things. And that way, nobody gets left behind and they don't get peer reviewed at all if it's just one giant discussion. But also, I don't like to partner people up because sometimes a partner is just unreliable. And this is the beginning of the semester. And so I want to ensure that everybody actually gets reviewed. So I try to put groups of four. So here are the two due dates that you need to be aware of. Wednesday, January 29th, by the end of that day, make sure your one-page essay is posted to the group. I didn't write this here, but I'm going to verbally say this, that each day that you post this essay late, you get marked down points. So don't do that, right? You want to be in a timely fashion so that you give your peers a chance to actually respond to you. And then by Sunday, at the end of the day, you need to peer review two of your group members. I want you to be able to look at two of your group members, and that way everybody kind of gets a lot of feedback. If you notice a group member is getting a lot of responses and another isn't, please go for the one that isn't so that everybody has reviews. I appreciate that. So your directions for the one-page essay, I just copied and pasted it from the writing assignments, the same instruction. Submit a one-page writing assignment, makes a mini argument. And then directions for the peer review are down here. So review two of your group mates' one-page essays answering the below listed questions. Please write your peer review directly into the text box and not as an attached document. It's just too long for me to have to open all documents to see. And I think it's hard too for the students. So these are just the questions. There's 7 questions that you just have to go through, and you do it twice, and then you're done. And then down here, I listed who's in what group, just so you can kind of see who's in your group. Should you have want to reach out to someone, you can email them and say, hey, I noticed you haven't put your essay up. I'd really appreciate it if you could, or things like that, so you can kind of interact with each other and encourage each other to post and all that good stuff. And then that's it. You're all done for the week 3. Just doing those things. I know it sounds, I said all done, like it's not a big deal, but I know it is a lot of work, but it's worth it to explore these things before you turn in your one-page essay for me to grade. And week 4, I also want to pull your attention to the one-page essay grading rubric. Please open that and take a moment to review that on your own, just so you have an idea of how I grade the essay and maybe why the student example was a B. And so kind of having an idea of what it did well and where it could have done better, to help you with your discussion as well. And that's it. You're all done.